going to bring up Mary Krakow, who is our featured reader coordinator, and she's going to introduce our featured reader for tonight.
Well, I'm glad you're all here. And I just remembered that I did not silence my phone, so if you would all silence your phone or remind me when I sit down to silence mine, I'd appreciate that. So I am the featured reader coordinator. We always have a reader read something to us that they've written here at our monthly meetings, and I will be sending out a sign-up sheet in October at the meeting. I'll just send around a sign-up sheet, October and November. So if you're thinking you want to be a reader, we ask that you be a member and have something interesting to read. Okay, so tonight's featured reader is Patty Sharon, and as a certified caregiving consultant and creator of Brick by Brick Bonding, she understands the fatigues and challenges that plague caregivers and has found strategies to help throughout the caregiving journey. When Patty Sharon is not spreading hope and creativity to her friends and family, she likes to use her superpowers to encourage family caregivers to bring joy and laughter to their carees living with Alzheimer's and dementia using Lego bricks and pieces. Now, I did hear her at, I think it was the Redmond Senior Center, and so you're going to enjoy what she has to say. It's very interesting. So anyway, visit her website at brickbybrickbonding.com. That was brickbybrickbonding.com. Please welcome Patty Sharon.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, okay. Everyone can see me okay? Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Oh. Fix the screen. Is it too high?
Oh.
Too loud?
Just your little teeny thing.
I'm assuming that the folks at home are seeing the big picture of her, right?
I spotlit her. Do you want me to
Okay.
stop the screen share?
If you want to have a big picture of you right behind you as you talk.
That's totally fine. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Can everyone hear me all right?
And your sound
Awesome.
is online.
It's like the Jumbotron.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Today, I'd like to share a story about myself, and then I'm going to read part of my introduction to my book, Brick by Brick Bonding. So for decades, I worked at a job where I was miserable, but I had no choice. Today, I have a job I love, but the people I work with have no choice. Along the way, I've learned many important lessons. I became a single mom when my daughter was less than 2 years old. I was fortunate enough to get a $25 an hour job in an investment bank in New York City, but the type of work I did was awful. But I had great benefits, so I kept working there. When my daughter was on her own and no longer on my health insurance, I quit. Now I don't have to fit into anyone else's template. I moved from New York to California and now Central Oregon, and I chose a new profession. I became a Lego artist and started a business sharing the joy of Lego with others. The feeling of regaining my agency and control over my life was exhilarating. But I stumbled onto something unexpected. I had a friend who managed a memory care community for folks living with Alzheimer's and dementia, and I asked her if I can do a Lego session with her residents using Lego Duplo bricks and pieces, and she loved the idea. I didn't know if it was going to work. No one had done this sort of thing at that time. So when I started, I stood in front of a group of about 6 seniors in wheelchairs around a dining room table. I introduced myself, and not a single person looked up. They had lost their agency to a disease. In the early stages, they start to lose their agency over their own minds and memories. Then they lose their agency over even the smallest decisions: what they eat, what they wear, what time they go to bed. But I continued with the session, and I got down to their level, and I spoke to each individual one by one. I spoke to Mary, who was about 80-something years old. I asked her if she was a dog or cat person. But Mary had lost her ability to verbally communicate. Her only response was thank you. I held out a Lego dog and a Lego cat in one hand, and I asked her, I held them out. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. But she had lost her ability even to make that choice. So I gave Mary a Lego flower, Lego Duplo flower. She had took it from me, she examined it. It was something new in her life that had become institutional and routine. I showed her how she can take it and stick it onto a base plate to make a little scene. Then Mary did something I had never seen anyone else do before. She put the flower upside down and spun it like a top. At that moment, in that dining room, in that sliver of time, Mary had agency again. She did something for herself. She did something other people didn't expect of her. Maybe she didn't even expect it from herself. But I could see it on her face. It had lit up with a huge smile, her thin eyebrows raised. She clapped her hands together in a moment of pure joy. And then I knew it worked. I knew it worked. It worked to restore joy. It worked to give Mary back a small piece of her creativity that she used to enjoy. And it wasn't just Mary. I'd done it with hundreds of seniors over and over again, giving them this moment where they can restore their agency, and the happiness lasts long beyond the session. Even though they can't remember my name, maybe they can't even remember sometimes their own family, they remember the Lego lady. They remember the joy that they had for that one small moment. And that's what inspired me to write my book, Brick by Brick Bonding. I want to help families, caregivers, grandchildren, great-grandchildren to experience that same moment of joy with their loved one. It might look like they're just playing with bricks and pieces, but what they're really doing is restoring a moment of agency and building memories. Thank you. That's my story. So I'd like to read the intro of my book, or part of the intro of my book. Your caregiving journey is first about your caree, then about you and your caree, and then just about you. When it's just about you, you decide, you choose, you become. Become your dream. Denise Brown. In 2013, I came out of my dark ages. My daughter had given me the Volkswagen T1 camper van Lego creator set, and a whole new world opened up for me. The joy I felt building and displaying this set burst inside of me and ignited a chain of events that changed my life and touched many others in the process. With this book, I hope to touch your life and your carees. When a child stops playing with Lego and resumes as an adult, the Lego community refers to this as coming out of the dark ages. This is just one of the many things I did not know when I began my journey. Looking back now, I'm amazed at the beauty of the winding path that led me to where I am today, a certified caregiving consultant, a professional caregiver, a dementia caregiver, a business owner, an entrepreneur. But above all, I'm a person who sees people struggling to connect with one another and feels compelled to help. I wrote this book because I needed to share what I had learned with those who are struggling to care for family members with dementia. But let's back up a little bit. I thought being a parent was hard, but caring for someone near the end of their life is a whole other level. And when your caree is a parent or a significant person in your life, it can bring up a whole slew of complex and confusing emotions. It is no wonder people are struggling. When I came out of my dark ages in 2013, I initially enjoyed Lego on my own. However, about a year later, I found the community of older adult Lego enthusiasts. Many had created businesses around Lego activities for children. I love the idea of working with children. I love the idea of working with Lego bricks and pieces for a living and started off following in their footsteps, working with kids. I really enjoyed working with children. I could see their minds expand and their confidence and their creativity grow. But as much as I enjoyed it, my mind kept itching, asking me again and again, what other parts of the population are missing out on this amazing tool? One night, the answer crystallized clearly in my mind: older adults and their caregivers. For a while, the steps fell into place as though the universe had preordained my path. A friend of mine owned a memory care community in the San Francisco Bay Area nearby. I asked if I could take Lego Duplo bricks and pieces to her establishment, and she agreed. I was a little nervous, was not really sure how the residents would respond, but I need not have worried. They loved it. I was happily surprised to see just how many people enjoyed the activity. I remember a resident I will call Fleur. She had been living in the facility for many years. She was a ward of the state and had no family or friends to visit. A stroke had left her paralyzed on one side. Fleur loved the Lego activity so much the facility invited me back on a weekly basis. The staff told me that they could see the difference the visits made in the residents' happiness. They were noticeably more content for days following each visit. Many would ask, "When is the Lego lady coming back?" The staff also loved Lego time. It was not just for the effects it had on the residents. Some staff members would sit down and join us, welcoming the needed break from their regular responsibilities. A few began to bring their kids to the Lego sessions when they could. Aides, nurses, dining staff, housekeepers, physical therapists, doctors, social workers, clergy, even residents' family members would join in the fun. This was an activity everyone could enjoy. I had found my calling. Brick by brick bonding was born. This fabulous experience propelled me to contact other memory care communities and adult daycare centers around the Bay Area. In each establishment, the sessions were met with enthusiasm and success. Within a few short years, brick by brick bonding had grown throughout the San Mateo, San Francisco, San Jose, and San Joaquin counties in California. I was poised to expand into Oregon when COVID-19 forced all facility visitors and group activities to stop. The future was terribly uncertain, and for the first time, it seemed that perhaps the path the universe had provided had come to an end. Of course, I understood the closures were necessary to ensure the safety and survival of the residents, but my heart ached for the loss. Not only my business and livelihood, but for the residents, their caregivers, and family members who I knew were suffering intently in the terror and isolation of the pandemic. As the world ground to a halt, perhaps the one thing I had in abundance was time. As a professional caregiver, I understand the challenges of caregiving, and I know how difficult it can be to connect with your caree, even on good days sometimes, but especially in the bad ones. In the face of unexpected and evolving circumstances, it can be even more difficult. Adapting to change takes a lot of energy, and frequent changes are inevitable in caregiving. Fortunately, I've also experienced firsthand the power of preparation. Proper preparation can make the difference between a frantic reaction and a calm response. It can mean the difference between an overwhelming caregiving experience and a deeply fulfilling, rewarding one. As a certified caregiving consultant, I have listened to countless caregiver stories, struggles, and challenges. I have helped them prepare for and navigate through their caregiving journeys. I love supporting caregivers one-on-one. However, during the pandemic, I was compelled to reach further. I knew that the skills and insight I have acquired about bonding over Lego parts and activities can help many more struggling caregivers that I could reach individually. I had no choice but to write this book, and I hope with all of my heart that it helps you bring you and your caree renewed joy together. So what are the benefits of brick by brick bonding? Lego bricks and pieces are a terrific tool to process tough emotions and to find creative solutions to challenging situations. Why? Because there's no wrong way with building with Lego. Anyone can do it. It is a simple yet effective way to express oneself without having to rely on words. which can be so elusive to some with dementia. When we are building, possibilities are endless and success is inevitable. As far as I'm concerned, putting two pieces together or just enjoying the colors, the shapes, time spent together is a success. Here are some of the benefits of brick-by-brick bonding for people with dementia. It facilitates connection. It promotes trusting relationships. It reduces stress. It helps maintain dexterity. It offers tactile stimulation. It's a safe place to make decisions. It provides opportunity for choice and control. And it enables emotional expression. I have a couple of copies of my book at the back, and I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. It's inspirational. And as Patty said, she's got books back on this back table over there, and she'll be around afterwards if you want to take a look at those, talk more with her, or purchase a book. Yeah, go for it. This young woman behind me, behind the curtain, is Julie Swearingen. And she's going to talk to us tonight about how to create and run an author event. Julie is the owner of Quail Run Editorial, has edited more than 40 books in memoir, fiction, young adult, historic romance, nonfiction genres. Currently, she's the events manager at Roundabout Books. She told me that she has run hundreds of author events. So we were trying to do a count earlier, but hundreds of author events at Roundabout and beyond. She's a board member here at Central Oregon Writers Guild, Northwest Editors Guild, and ACES, the American Copy Editor Society. Yeah. And her, you can check out more about her at quailrun.com, www.quailrun.com. And Julie's also a good friend. So welcome, welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Okay. Is it working? Oh, good. I didn't do it right then. You'd think after all the Zoom events we've done, I would know how to screen share. Hi, everybody. I'm going to preface this by saying that if you thought writing your book was hard, having a book event is hard. It's really hard. So I started at Roundabout in 2019, and
I want to know, can I take pictures of your slides?
yeah, absolutely. And 9 months in, when we had just gotten our calendar set for like 6 months out, COVID. So we've actually rebuilt it just in the last 2 years. So I've been through every iteration of a good and bad event.
Do you want to send me your slides?
Yeah, we can do that.
So I'll put, rather than having to write down everything that's up here, I'll put these slides on the website as soon as
Laurel, why no worky?
the video for this, okay?
I turned it on, but it just tells me no. It says no. Is it because of how we're sharing? Okay, let's try it now. Let's see if maybe it was just. Okay. Oh, now it works. Okay, thank you. Okay. I enjoy a PowerPoint, and I hope you too.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you, Laura. Okay, so the first thing you need to think about is the timing of pitching your event, and this might sound scary, especially if you're somebody who waits until the last second for things, which I am. You need to actually pitch 4 to 6 months before the publication. If you want your event to be around the publication of your book, you want a launch event, you want something right away, which is the best time to do it. We do events with a lot of people whose books have been out for a couple years. That's great, but right around the launch is the most you're going to get of like marketing and word of mouth. The other thing is 4 to 6 months before an intended time frame. So say your event has something to do with a holiday. For instance, we have an event that just went live today about 9/11. We're doing it on September 12th, but we've only been planning it for about 4 weeks. That's tight. That doesn't make my boss happy. So if you want an event in May, you need to probably get in touch with that bookstore in December or January. Caveat to that, if you email them in December, you're not going to hear back from them until January. December is rough in retail. So your next biggest thing, and it's the same as identifying the publisher that you might want to work with or an agent, is why this bookstore? So you all here in the room can probably answer that for Roundabout and say, well, I live in Bend. But if you're going to pitch a bookstore in Seattle, why the heck do they care about you or your book? It's a valid question. Do you have a connection to the area? Does the book, for instance, we had an author earlier this year fly in from Connecticut because her book was called Beaverland, literally about the evolution and use of beavers in America, the beaver trade, etc. Oregon is the beaver state. Guess what? We still only had 25 people show up to that event. It is what it is. But the book definitely still had a connection. Like, we knew no one's going to have heard of her, but they're going to understand that Beaverland has something to do with us. And then again, will your book sell at this store? These two are really like tied together. If you don't know this from a store, it's okay to ask. I actually had somebody ask me this the other day. We sell literary fiction. We just do. That's exactly what Roundabout sells. We also sell a ton of outdoor and sports guides because of the area we're in. So again, that is very specific to the book. And then what other events have they hosted? If you're looking at a bookstore that doesn't have their event calendar up, they might not be hosting events. I mean, you could have answered your question already. So we're going to look at the June 2023 Roundabout calendar, which was surprisingly light. That first event on June 1st for Hey Hun by Emily Lynn Paulson was about multi-level marketing and the fact that it's a cult. But Emily Lynn Paulson is also a local. So the topic itself might not have brought people in if she didn't have the network that brought people in, and we had like 50 people in the store talking about this. But as you can see, a week later, we had a book about Mount Bachelor, the history of it, why it actually saved the town of Bend from going under after the logging companies got shut down. If you didn't know, the old mill really was a mill. Glenn Voles is a local author. We had 66 people and sold 45 copies because it's about Mount Bachelor, because it speaks so much to the local community. Same with the event on the 16th, All and Nothing Inside Free Soloing. This is an author who currently lives in Hawaii, but he was doing a tour. We had a ton of people in because he went and did a talk earlier that day at Smith Rock and said, hey, come listen more about my book at this event tonight. So that's going to make a difference. Down at the end, the 29th, if you're not familiar with Carrie Chaput, she is a local author. I believe she's actually a member of the Guild. She's put out a couple of fiction, and this was her first YA. I adore her. She's local. We still only had 6 people in the store. They'd already bought 6 copies. We actually didn't even sell any more that night. It is what it is. We're going to talk about how you can hopefully get over some of that stuff. But this is really helpful, I think, because when you're pitching to me, I'm looking at my previous event calendar. Have we had something that is of a similar genre, activity, outdoor guide? Because I know what's going to sell, and unfortunately that sometimes means I'm going to tell you no. Approaching the bookstore, please, please, please go and look at their website. We take a lot of pride and time into what our website looks like, especially the event landing page. We've redone it in a couple different times in the last 2 years. Does it list what type of events they will and won't do? Are they a bookstore that won't do anything nonfiction? Like, maybe that's not what sells for them, so they're gonna have to turn you down immediately. It's not that your book has anything wrong with it. You have to remember what the store. Does it list their capacity? This is going to come up again later. Ours does. A lot of stores don't. What you need to remember is if they list their capacity, you need to invite double that amount of people. I learned this from being in multi-level marketing. Do they have an event contact? Is there somebody listed? Is it, I think mine is not listed on there right now because we've gone a different direction. Do not rely on info at or a contact form. I cannot tell you how many times I send emails back to someone and say, thank you for your email. I need you to go do this thing that was on my event webpage that I spent time talking about. And then what kind of event are you proposing? I think a lot of authors don't think about this. There's a couple different versions. You're having an in-conversation. So for instance, with Emily Lynn Paulson, the in-conversation was with me because I have a background in multi-level marketing and I had read the book, devoured it, wanted to give it to everybody who's ever been to a Mary Kay party. So I was like, please let me interview you. But are you thinking of a fellow author? You have someone that you know locally. But if you don't, if your idea is I want to do it in conversation and you just say that to the bookstore, I can't help you. I don't know who to contact. I rely on Ellen Santasiero a lot. She has been our in-conversation partner at the last second when an author gets back to me, sometimes a bigger name author too, that says, oh, I've decided I want to do this. Cool. I have to make sure I get a book for them so they can read it. So please don't leave this for me. Presentation. Do they have a screen and projector? We do. Emily Lynn Paulson posted something on Funny where she got to a bookstore in Salt Lake City and she was doing slides and they didn't have a projector. She's been published by a Big Five, so this happens to everybody, but this is a question you need to be prepared for. And then are you just doing a reading and a book talk? What's your book about, why you wrote it, why people should like it, read for a few minutes. And that will come up. Okay, so we're gonna look at my bookstore as the example, obviously. I know this is a little bit harder to read just because of the screen, but basically what it says is our store can seat approximately 60 people comfortably. In truth, we can seat 80. We don't want to do that because the store gets real hot and real uncomfortable. We would rather do it off-site. We have options. We can go to OSU and we have classrooms that can seat 100, which we've done. But that gives me a good number to say to most people also is, my goal for your event, your goal for this event is 50 people in my store. How many do you need to invite then? The other thing is we talk a little bit about our advertising. So we advertise on social media, our website calendar, our newsletter, which reaches 7,000 customers, and yet I still can't get them to come to a lot of events. We advertise on the community calendars for the Bulletin, The Source, Visit Bend, KPOV. We were doing Visit Northwest Crossing, but their website's down right now. And then this fun hyperlink, if you're interested in hosting a book event, please complete this Google form. I don't always love it, but it's really helpful. This Google form, and this is something we got out of a class, so there are a lot of bookstores that are doing this now, is going to tell me almost everything I need to know in order to tell you yes or no. So it goes through some stuff at the beginning, but we have a couple different, we list the kind of things we want. Do you want an event with more than one author? Like you want to, in conversation, you want to do a panel, something like that. Authors who offer workshops, demonstrations, craft talks, or other activities are much more likely to draw an audience. The response time at the bottom. We receive many inquiries and book events 3 to 4 months in advance, but it could take me 1 to 4 months to get back to you. And that's literally because I have so many other emails to answer. So it goes through, it asks you, what are your connections to Central Oregon? You live here. You have, you lived here when you were a kid, but you haven't been back in a while. Okay, let's talk about what does that mean for your network showing up for an event like this. Do you want a book launch? Do you want it to just be you? Do you, we now have a ticketing system. So it's $5 or purchase the book. And those, because it costs money for us to have the bookstore open for upwards of 2 hours after we close. We want them to buy your book. I don't care about this $5. I want them to buy your book. but we had to institute something. And I'll tell you what, we've gotten more butts in the seats. Because when they pay $5, they show up. I'll show up if I paid $5. Same thing.
Attendance here.
Amen. We also ask, have you had any events elsewhere in Oregon for this book within the last 6 months? This might seem weird, but if you'll notice on our event calendar on the COWG page, Anne Graham, who wrote a memoir called Tall Annie, has an event at Herringbone on September 21st. We have her on September 7th. That's something I don't like to do. You will cannibalize your audience. If you host an event with me and then one at Paulina Springs and Sisters, you're only going to get half the attendance at each of them, and maybe not even that because you've given people too many options. A confused mind says no. Give them one event. And I don't want to take events from Paulina Springs. If that's your audience, if Herringbone and Redmond is your audience, go for it. I'm not offended if you do not book an event with me.
So Julie, let's say you're having a book launch and you want to get word out to as many places as you can. You're saying one in Central Oregon and one in Eastern Oregon and one
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And we talk about it. So again, if your event was 6 months ago at Herringbone, let's do it again. That's enough time that people have forgotten. Let's have another one because why not? Yeah, especially if you're local. We ask about the percentage of audience that's already purchased your book. That's kind of a weird question. We talk about our mission. You know, if your book is anti-LGBTQ, I'm not going to book a event with you. Just going to tell you this right now. This is big. We're going to talk about this in a second, but where is your book available from? Are you published through someone who uses Ingram? If you don't know what that means, we can talk later. If you're not, or if it's a tiny publisher, you're going to have to carry the book on consignment. We don't pay you until the book sells because we run really tight margins. And then talking about publicizing your event. The job of getting an audience to an event is 90% the responsibility of the author. I hate to say it. If I could get my customers to come to every single one of these events, we would be having lines out the door, and I cannot. It makes me sad. Publicity plans. Do you have a connection at the Bend Go magazine? Do you have a connection with The Source, etc.? Anytime that you are mentioned in either of those publications, you are going to get people at your event. Those are the two publications for people who are like-minded to come to a book event. Just getting it like on a community calendar, great. The Source or Go is going to get you people. Okay. You've scheduled an event. Congratulations. What I need from you. So I do this two ways. If it's a bigger, like if you've hired a publicist, I'm not going to make them fill out, I have another Google form. If you're just doing it yourself, you self-published, I have a Google form that asks you all of these questions. But again, where's your book available from? Ingram, the publisher, sell it on consignment. Never ask a bookstore to order it from Amazon. Never. Just don't even mention Amazon.
Why not?
We hate Amazon. Amazon's putting us out of business. Amazon's the devil for bookstores. It's going to kill us all. It's not Barnes & Noble. It wasn't Borders. It's Amazon. It's going to kill us all. Because if you can get the $29.95 hardcover at my store, but it's $18 at Amazon, I mean, I'm broke. I get it. But they're going to put us out of business. They're a terrible company, too. I worked for them once. I hate them. Do you have...
How do you feel about Amazon?
I mean, I could talk about it for a long time. I actually worked at the Amazon Books in the Washington Square Mall in Portland for Christmas season because I was that desperate after grad school. The customers were amazing. The company and the employees made me cry on a regular basis. Yeah, they're horrible. You need a 50 to 200 word book synopsis. So this is most likely what's already on the back cover of your book, but expand it a little bit. Don't just give me like the tiniest blurb that you fit on there when you were going to publish it. Tell me a little bit more about it too. Tell me readers of such and such are gonna like this. a 50 to 150 word bio. And I know people hate writing bios. We've had this conversation even with people writing or submitting for the anthology. I don't like writing a bio. I don't care. You're going to have to do it at some point. I need to know about you. I need to know how I can market you too. Is there something interesting about you? Like, it's just the truth. Book cover and author headshot, JPEG or PNG, not a TIFF, not a PDF, highest resolution possible, and any reviews or blurbs you've gotten, even if they're from, if your book is already published and you've gotten a really nice review on said website, you can send that to me. Just don't tell me where it was from. That's fine. Just don't tell me. Could have been your friend, I don't care. Okay, this is the big one, marketing your event. And again, I'm doing all of these same things. We're sending your event in our monthly newsletter to over 7,000 people, why they should be here, what the connection to our area is. But if you have a newsletter or email list, you must send them an event. And we've talked about this in marketing before where people are like, I don't want to bug my friends about my book. Yeah, you do. They're not going to come. Social media. So we make bookstore Facebook events. What I'll tell you is Facebook events don't do anything, but it's a presence you still have to have. If I'm not able to make you a co-host, I'll send you the link to the Facebook event. I think you can request to be a co-host, but either way, still use it for your friends who use Facebook, who might share it to their network, etc. And then post about the event on any of your socials, whichever you have, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You'll find all of those handles on the bookstore's website. And then tag us, because that tells me and my boss that you're helping us advertise them. It's a weird way of me like following up, I guess, with you to say, you know, my social media manager will tell me such and such tagged us in this really cute post about their event. Sweet. Like, thank you. And then if you've been telling someone that you're writing a book and it's now published, you better tell them about the event. Like, why else would you? Like, you have to tell everybody. Okay, real quick stuff about the night of the event, or just prepping for the night of. So you're having an in-conversation. Do you have specific questions you do or don't want that person to ask you? It's okay to send it to them ahead of time. I mean, any moderator of any sort of panel at AWP, PNBA, we always send back the questions, because what if I forget something that you really want to talk about? Send your in-conversation partner a list of what you might want to talk about. And then is it a straight interview or a conversation? Like when we had our crime panel, right? Like that was more of a conversation between all of the authors talking about like the book you wrote and your writing process. Let's talk about the book you wrote. And so it's really nice in that sense of an in-conversation, because if that person, so for instance with Tracy Lang, we had Nicole Meyer as the in-conversation partner. She's written 5 or 6 books. So we know that her people are also going to come, because once she shares it, she's part of the event. So make it a true partnership in that sense of an in-conversation. Presentation. Is the file on your laptop or a thumb drive? Does your laptop have an HDMI port? Macs are notorious for not having this option, and they ruin my life. So either bring it on a thumb drive and I will use my laptop, which yes, has funny stickers on it, or bring a dongle, because the last thing I want to do is have to stand up there because I can't get your presentation to open. Or in Google Slides if you really need to. Reading in a book talk. So here's some of the things you want to think about with that one. Why did you write the book? What's your connection to the subject matter, right? Like I'm going to talk to Karen Zacharias about the true crime that she was involved with that led her to write this book. Surprisingly, people want to know about your writing process. They really do. Are you a plotter or a pantser? They'll ask this. I don't know if they're writers or they just like to know this about, like, especially people who have gotten like Big 5 published. I think there's like this mystique that somehow you did something different than anybody else. You didn't. Did you have to research your characters? Jane Kirkpatrick, who I didn't realize was coming back up, she's moved to California. She gives some of the best presentations about the research she does for these historically, like this historical women, and then obviously she takes it off on this like amazing other tangent. But she does a ton of research, and it's really cool to learn that. Do not read for more than 5 minutes at a time. Please don't. I might cut you off. Okay. A couple things to remember. This might be some of the sadder parts of it, but I was generous with 20%, but at least 20% of your invitees will not show. And one of the things I have had to learn in 4 years as the book event or the event manager is, it's not personal. Just like it still hurts my feelings when people don't show up. When I book an author and I'm like, I love your book so much, and nobody's there. I hate it so much. Do not sign all of the books that are left over. Now, if you're on consignment, that's generally okay, because if I don't sell your books, you're coming to pick them back up from me. If you sign a book that we got from the publisher or Ingram, we cannot return it. That is a black mark. I will remember. People have actually come into our store and signed their books while they're on our shelf and not told us. If I find you doing this, we'll have words. I hate that so much. I've actually had people in publishing Facebook groups say to go and do it, and I went, don't you ever do that. Like, it's such bad etiquette for bookstores. This is something I had never thought about. Somebody mentioned this to me recently. Your author signature should not be your legal signature. Identity theft. I had no idea. So even if it's just your initials and it's really scribbly, and that, I mean, nobody cares. Like if you're Stephen King maybe, but just have it be kind of cool, I guess. Do you want to bring bookmarks and postcards and stickers that you got made through whomever? That's great. Just tell me beforehand, because you're probably not going to be able to leave them with me. I don't have room on the shelf. I can try and stuff a few of them in your books, but that's really all I can do. Same with an email sign-up list. Whatever your book is about, yours is a great example of that. You have an event, you want people to buy this book and then to sign up for more information about the things that you're doing. That's great. Just ask me beforehand, because I don't want my customers to feel obligated to do it. I want it to be a very natural of, if you want to find out more information about my book and my work, may I get your email? And then if you need to cancel for any reason, please give the bookstore as much notice as possible, obviously. And we have only had to do this a couple times so far this year, but we had a virtual event scheduled with Mark Cameron, who, if you're not familiar, is an actually pretty big named author. He has an Arliss Cutlass series out of Alaska, but he also writes under the John Grisham pen name and a bunch of those. Up until about 5 hours before the virtual event, we had 0 ticket holders. I emailed his publicist and I said, I am so sorry. I have literally advertised this to every news outlet in Portland as well, because it's virtual. Nobody is here. This is not how I want the author to spend his time. She said, no problem. I'll let him know. It's canceled. No big deal. It's what we have to do. If the day before your event I have 0 RSVPs, I'm going to let you know. Okay, questions? That was fast. Yeah. Sorry. I usually go way over because I have a lot of things to talk about. So, questions? Anyone? Yes?
What about food?
Food can be a little bit of a touchy subject with a bookstore. For instance, because my bookstore does sell food, we, I think, technically cannot prepare the food, but if you brought cookies, we just put them out. It's more about we can't sell it if we didn't prepare it, but if it's just cookies that you want to have. It's kind of similar with alcohol, surprisingly. If you're not charging, you can actually bring alcohol. You can bring wine, because we don't have a liquor license anymore. We had to give it up during COVID. It's ridiculously expensive. But if we're not charging for it, you can bring wine. Yeah?
Do you coordinate with other bookstores? Like, for example, Craig Johnson's coming to Sun River. Do you say, hey, Dion, you don't coordinate with other people?
Yes and no.
Can you repeat that question?
Do we coordinate with other bookstores? So that is, it falls under 2 things. One, where is it at? If it's at her store, no, she's not going to want to give any sales to me. How is that going to work? If it's Zoom, Yes, we have coordinated events. I will say Dion and Sun River just has her own thing going, and it's going so well that we really haven't partnered with her, but we have partnered with Herringbone and Paulina Springs. We have partnered with Powell's, Third Place Books, Annie Bloom's in Portland, and a couple other ones, because a lot of times what we're getting invited by the publisher. They're saying, hey, what was the last one? Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. Came out in December. It was still like COVID. She didn't want to travel. So they did a one-off where all of the bookstores could join. It's harder to get bookstores together on something, especially if it's something at a location, because we have to split the cost. We have to decide what the tickets are. If it's virtual, yes. If it's in person, no. It just doesn't work out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an author that, is this a application similar to like bookstores, like in like, if one has to travel to as far as New York?
So if you're,
Can you repeat the question so the folks at home can hear?
so is it similar ways of booking an event if you're traveling?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, because if you're booking it yourself, you're probably still going to have to go through all of this. If you had a publicist, probably not, because they're going to do all of that legwork. So I do deal with a ton of publicists, especially if someone is doing a national book tour. But say you publish a book, you want to have an event with me, and you want to have an event with Annie Bloom's in Portland. You're going to be contacting Michael at Annie Bloom's and doing all of this exact same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you do that even without an agent?
Yeah. And don't try and get into Powell's. I'm just going to tell you right now.
One.
Oh,
They're notorious. They won't even. I used to work for I used to work at a publicity, an actual book publicity firm in Portland, and we couldn't even get them to respond to us.
Do they do readings at Powell?
Oh yeah, like 2 and 3 times a week.
Yeah.
They're just notoriously like insular. If you don't already know somebody there, if you're not already connected to somehow a big name, you've won an Oregon Book Award, they're never going to even reply to you.
It's like getting published in the New Yorker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. I love their stores. They're a really hard company to work with. Yeah. I saw another hand.
Just curious your perspective on this in today's publishing world. How important are bookstore events to authors?
So the question is, how important are bookstore events? I think it depends on a couple of factors. I think if you can market yourself on social media and you're getting sales that way, whether it's through your own website, another website, go for it. Keep doing that. What I will say is, especially for smaller named authors, self-published, really indie published, how else are people going to find out about you unless you go to a bookstore event? And some of them are as simple as we host a twice yearly local author speed date where I get 4 to 6 authors. You sit in my cafe at a table with a little plaque that says like what your book is, and people come up and are like, what's your book about? And you tell them, and you sell the book. And those are easier. Well, getting them scheduled is a little bit like herding cats, but the actual event itself is super easy because I don't really have to do anything. And it's the same thing. I'm going to tell you to invite everybody you know. And what's going to happen is all of your friends are going to buy from that author and all of their friends are going to buy from you. So I've had people sell 13 books in a 2-hour span during a speed date. If I could host more of them, I would, and we try and do them on the Saturdays during farmers market, which also makes the store really busy. But I think it's one of the last ways to cut through the noise of social media because everybody is selling their book on TikTok, everybody's selling it on Twitter, they're selling it on Instagram, and so many people, I still freak out if an author, like especially a bigger name or whomever, comes into our store and I get a signed copy, that has a special place on my bookshelf. Like I still am like, you wrote a book and you signed it to my name and I'm so excited. Like it's just such a fun like way to experience a book at an event. So I love them. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the virtues of a Zoom author event versus in person in 2023?
Don't do it. Okay, so Zoom versus in-store. Here's what I'm going to say. If your book speaks to an area of the United States that you cannot travel to, like on a budget, propose a Zoom event to them, because you will still reach a bigger audience than you ever would have, and you have saved yourself and them quite a bit of money. What I will say is, because we over-Zoomed during the pandemic, I cannot get people to come to a Zoom event right now. Absolutely cannot, unless it was Brene Brown or Ann Patchett, because nobody wants to sit in their dining room or wherever. I will say kids' books sometimes do a little bit better. We have an entire series in October and November for the Oregon Battle of the Books, and we have 13 events that we can host 100 kids at each of them. We're only at about 20 tickets sold for each, but it will increase. Last year, we did only like 6, and we had one event that had almost 100 kids and has had like 500 views on our YouTube channel. That's the other thing. You can record a Zoom event really easily. Like, I still try and record some of our in-store events, and I'm literally doing it on my cell phone. It's not the greatest. But Zoom events are just so forgettable and so like, oh, it's on Zoom, I don't care. It's not meeting someone. But again, if you wrote a book about hiking the Appalachian Trail because you know all about it and you've done it, but now you live in Oregon, pitch a book or a bookstore on the Appalachian Trail and be like, let's do this. Otherwise, no. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you love about your job and what do you hate about it?
What do I love and what do I hate? That's true. Well, I'm just going to go back to it. It literally breaks my heart when people don't show up. It just does, because it might be left over from being in multi-level marketing, and that was how I made my money. And when I would host an event and none of my friends showed up, I took it very personally. It's not, but I did. So when I'm so excited about a book event, especially because I've already read the book or somebody else at the store has, and I get this, I reach out to the author and they're so excited. They've done all the things. And then there are 50 other events happening in Bend on a Tuesday or Thursday night. Like, we're competing right now with Munchin Music, or we were, and that's a killer. There's nothing I can do about it, and yet it still hurts my feelings. So it's the hardest part of my job is the expectations of my excitement. Yeah. Otherwise, I love it. I really do love my job. Anybody else?
A couple online questions
Yeah.
here. What's the difference between Ingram and Ingram Spark?
So Ingram and Ingram Spark, let's think about it this way. Ingram is what everybody from the Big Five down to an indie press like PSU's Ooligan Press. What happens is the books get printed, they get stored in a warehouse in either Roseburg or Nashville, Tennessee. We love it when they're in Roseburg. And then we can order them and get them in 2 days, right? All of the discounts apply. Like, that is the best bang for our buck in ordering a book. Ingram Spark is the Amazon version of Ingram. Your book is probably not actually getting printed until I order it, and it's probably on a really slim margin, so I'm actually gonna have to change your list price and add 20 or 30% to your margins for me to make money, which is a lot of times why consignment works better. So if you've ordered your books from whomever and you paid $4 for them, you sell it for $25. I'm going to take 40% of that. But if we're ordering it from someone who, I have to add 30%, like, you're not seeing that because you already paid for it to be on Ingram Spark or however it works out in the end. It's just not, it's basically print on demand. And bookstores hate print on demand, and it's usually not returnable. So it just sits in my store until I have to do like an August sale and mark it down 30% anyway. It's not great.
All right. Another question. How much does it help to send an ARC with the pitch to the bookstore? What's the trade-off between a pitch 6 months ahead with no arc versus a pitch with an arc 2 to 3 months ahead?
So sending an arc versus not sending an arc.
And what's an arc?
Okay, so that stands for advanced reader copy or advanced review copy. There's some disagreements in the industry. You can also do a digital version. It's called a DRC. It's basically a PDF or an EPUB. Don't send me that. Here's the thing about sending it. Most people who want to do that are sending it to me unsolicited. You're sending me a one sheet of what your book is about, the ISBN, who to get it from, blurbs, and then this book. That's great. I don't have time to read it. I try and read as many of the event books as I possibly can. If I'm going to be the in-conversation partner, if I'm going to hype it to everybody else in the store, or I'm going to pass it off to somebody in the store, hey, read this and tell me about it. But if you do that unsolicited, I don't know how to fit that into my schedule. And if you do that with only 2 to 3 months out, I'm not going to do it because I need that 4 to 6 months to read the book, tell my bookstore about it, get all of the marketing materials on our end that we need and start hyping it. So if you only give me 2 to 3 months, I'm probably just going to tell you no. I just cannot fit it in my schedule. We are literally booked through the end of the year. I am booking January right now. I'm already booking May. Nicole Meyer has already talked to me about an event in May. This is not true for every single bookstore. There are a lot of bookstores that are smaller that do very smaller whatever. They might only be booking 6 to 8 weeks out, but you have to think about it in terms of the lead time for marketing. It's just so long. Because if it does not get in my newsletter, if it does not get all of those things, the other thing is my boss is going to tell me to tell you no. I do answer to someone else. And she has the final say. Okay, did I answer that one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyway,
Other questions?
right there. Yeah, go ahead.
If your book has original, interesting artwork, okay, is it worth having an author event that includes the illustrator?
Oh, if you have a book with artwork, yes. Yes. If everything else aligns the topic, your local, etc., I would love to have your illustrator there. We do that with a lot of kids' books because people who are interested in maybe being an illustrator for books, they want to break into that, might be interested in come hear what you did and how it worked out. Yeah, if you wrote a graphic novel, but you wrote the words and somebody else illustrated, I definitely want to know that they can come to an event as well. Yeah, I mean, that's where you're in conversation partner. You've got a built-in one to tell me myself and my illustrator are available, this time frame. Cool. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
What about true crime with photos? Would you want to have the photographer?
So your question is about true crime. Here's what I'm going to say, and this is going to, again, be different for every single store. We do not sell enough true crime for me to book an event with you. I have a true crime author sitting right behind Mike, and I love you, Karen. I'm not sure we would get enough people in for your books. And some of them are even hyper-local. I love true crime. I'm the only one in my store that reads it, and I have tried to expand the selection, and it went from one shelf to a half a shelf. We don't sell it. So I wouldn't probably host an event to begin with. Yeah. Yes, Amanda.
So a question, but when you guys do the Zoom events and you record them, what do you end up doing with the Zoom recordings later? Do you make them available to the authors, or do you guys have them on the website? Or?
So we have a YouTube channel, Roundabout does, so you can actually go back and watch a majority of our events since the pandemic. They live in perpetuity. It can be author specific though too. Sometimes authors will ask me to take it down after a month simply because they may have another event. They don't want someone watching my event and not going to their next event. That's only happened 2 times in 4 years, so it's less likely. And I do send them to most authors because they'll sometimes use them in their own marketing. I mean, they'll share them. We just want the views. I don't record ticketed events anymore because it negates the purpose of the ticket. I need you to be there in person and get your money's worth. Yeah. I thought I saw another one. Okay. I feel like I've been talking for so long.
No? All right.
Okay, thank you.